Good evening, my little creatures of the night. Mr. Wendigo back again with your late night creature feature. Before we begin, I'm curious. Where are you listening from tonight? Alone in your room? Driving through empty roads? Drop a comment and let me know. I like knowing who's out there in the dark with me. Now then, let's see what tonight's tale brings us. Borrowed skin. I'm writing this because somebody should know the real version. Not the official version, not the incident report I filed with the Park Service, not the medical examiner's findings on Ray Tatum or the missing persons designations on Felix Okafor and Anna Reyes. Those documents exist and they say what they need to say, and everyone who read them nodded and moved on. This is the other one, the one I write for myself at 2 a.m. with a beer going warm on the table beside me and the desert outside my windows doing what the desert does, which is nothing, which is everything, which is hold all its secrets in the dark and wait. I've been a ranger at Big Bend for 12 years, found lost hikers, treated snake bites, talked people down off ledges they had no business climbing, pulled bodies out of the heat. Filed the paperwork on all of it, went home, slept fine. That's the job. You process what you see and you move forward because there's always another call, always another family that drove 4 hours from Dallas and has no idea what the desert actually is when it stops being a postcard. Big Bend will kill you in about 40 different ways depending on the season. Heat stroke, flash floods in canyons that look bone dry, mountain lion if you're unlucky and stupid at the same time, falls. Dehydration that sneaks up on you because the air is so dry you don't feel yourself sweating until you're already in trouble. The Rio Grande looks like nothing and will take you under if you don't respect it. Rattlesnakes, black bears, not often but enough. The roads at night when you're tired and not paying attention. 12 years of that and I thought I had the full inventory. Every way these mountains could end a person. I kept the list in my head the way some people keep prayer. Not from fear, just respect. You know what's out there, you plan for it, you go home. I didn't have a category for what lives at Golden Pines Lake. What happened up there is not something I've processed. I don't think it processes. I think it just sits in a room in the back of your head and you walk past the door every day and you don't open it, and that's the arrangement you make with yourself. I'm opening it now, once, for the record. The dispatch call came in at 6:47 p.m. on October 14th, right when the Chisos were going orange with last light. Decker, you copy? Carol Ruiz had been on dispatch for Big Bend longer than I'd been alive, knew the mountains the way surgeons know anatomy. When her voice went careful, it meant something. Copy, Carol. Missing family, 3 people, Golden Pines Lake area. Truck's been at the trailhead since yesterday afternoon. Amarillo plate. Toyota 4Runner. Hotel in Studi Butte called it in when they didn't show for checkout this morning. I was already at my locker, pulling gear. Names? Ray Tatum, 44. Wife, Judith, 40. Daughter Kira, 17. Dallas address. Permitted overnight at Golden Pines, back out by 10:14 this morning. Golden Pines Lake. Pretty water, tall ponderosas, postcard views. Tourists loved it. Every local with any sense avoided it after dark. I'd been a ranger here 12 years and I'd camped every lake in the Chisos backcountry except that one. Last radio contact? 9:18 p.m. last night. After that, nothing. The transmission we got was garbled. Voices, wind, then something I couldn't make out. I'm sending you the audio. I'm 30 minutes from the trailhead. Have medical on standby. Decker. Her voice dropped half a register. Golden Pines. You know the stories. Yeah. Check in every hour. That's not a suggestion. Copy. I loaded for 72 hours even though this should have been a one-night pull. You learn that habit fast in Big Bend, or you learn it the hard way. Water filtration, emergency shelter, satellite phone, first aid kit built for real emergencies rather than tourist blisters, bear spray, The Glock on my hip that I'd drawn twice in 12 years and fired exactly 0 times. My truck started on the second try, which was better than average. 230,000 miles on a park service vehicle that budget constraints had kept me in for 3 years past useful life. I'd filed the replacement request so many times, Carol had started calling it my hobby. 45 minutes of dirt road in the dark. The desert at night in October is something specific. Cold that builds from the ground up. Sky so thick with stars it looks painted. Silence that has weight to it. Not the comfortable silence of your house at night. Presence of something else silence. The kind that makes the hair on your arm stand up if you stop and actually pay attention to it. I'd been paying attention to it for 12 years. Never got used to it. The Tatum family's forerunner sat alone in the small trailhead lot. Rental plates out of Dallas. They'd done everything right. Itinerary posted on the dash in neat handwriting. Gear inventory visible through the rear windows. Permit paperwork in the visor. Responsible people. The kind of family that does the research and buys the right equipment and reads the trail guides. The trail guides don't mention what the old ranching families knew about Golden Pines Lake. They got replaced by hiking apps and star ratings. 4.3 out of 5. Beautiful views. Good camping. Bring a headlamp. I radioed in my position and started up the trail at 8:20 p.m. I found the first stakes at mile 4. Fresh-cut pine branches driven into the hard ground along both sides of the trail. 7 on the left, 8 on the right. Pale where the bark had been stripped. Sap still wet. Wood shavings scattered at the bases. Recent work. Hours old, maybe. I stopped. Photographed them. Logged the GPS. The spacing was too deliberate for random vandalism, and too much effort for a prank. Something had driven these into ground that was close to rock underneath. Something that had no trouble with that. I kept moving. Mile 8, another cluster. Same pattern, tighter spacing. I walked through the middle of them without thinking about it and then stopped on the other side and turned back and looked at the double row of sharp stakes receding into my headlamp beam and thought about what a gate looks like. I kept moving. Mile 10, Sophie's backpack hanging from a pine branch 7 feet off the ground. Pastel purple, cartoon patches, completely undamaged. Inside, trail mix, a cracked flashlight, a dog-eared copy of a Percy Jackson novel, personal, carefully placed. I photographed it and called it in to Carol and kept moving because 3 people were still missing and the lake was 8 miles ahead. Mile 16, I heard the voice. Help. Thin. Distant. Coming from ahead on the trail. Help me. Please. Young woman's voice. Could have been Kira Tatum. Could have. The hair on my arm stood up and I stopped walking and listened, and the voice came again, wavering through the trees. Please, somebody help. Every part of my training said move toward a distress call. Every part of something older than training said stand perfectly still and do not answer. I keyed the radio. Carol, I have a possible distress call at mile 16, continuing toward the lake. Static. Then her voice came back warped and thin. Too much distance in the signal. Copy, Decker. Be careful. The voice ahead called once more and went silent. I walked faster. Mile 18, symbols carved into the bark of a massive ponderosa at chest height, fresh wounds in the wood, sap running down in dark trails, circles intersecting with angles, lines crossing in patterns that were almost right and completely wrong, remembered rather than known. One word underneath, scratched deep. Run. I took 3 photos, checked my sidearm, thought about what Vega had scratched into that bark and whether he'd been running when he did it or standing still and making a decision, kept walking. Golden Pines Lake opened up at the end of the trail, and it was beautiful the way a lot of dangerous things are beautiful. 200 yards of black water absolutely still. The ponderosas ringing it looked silver in the moonlight. The surface was a perfect mirror. Stars, trees, darkness, all of it reflected without distortion. No wind, no insects, no fish breaking the surface, nothing alive making any sound at all. The North Shore was where the Tatum family had permitted their camp. I swept my headlamp across it and found the evidence of what had happened the way you find evidence of disasters. In pieces, scattered, each one worse than the last. A jacket, red hiking shell, collar torn, dark stains on the sleeve that I'd seen enough times to know what they were, tent fabric in long strips, poles bent at angles that required serious force. A single boot, man size 11, half buried in pine needles. No bodies, no blood in quantities, just a camp that had come apart violently and fast. I approached the ranger cabin slowly, emergency shelter we maintain for SAR operations. Small, one room. The door was open, no lights inside. I pushed it wider. Wood stove cold in the corner, cot untouched, supply cabinet closed, one oil lantern on the hook above the door, which I lit, and in the warm yellow light I saw the table in the center of the room. 3 pairs of shoes, lined up heel to toe with the precision of someone who had too much time and no concept of what was normal. Men's hiking boots, women's trail runners, girls' sneakers, purple with white laces. The Tatum family's footwear, arranged with the precision of someone who had no concept of what was normal, an offering, carved into the tabletop in deep ragged letters, like the carving tool had been applied with more force than necessary. They wear your skin. I stood there in the lamplight for a long moment. The temperature in the cabin had nothing to do with the October air outside. It was coming from somewhere else, somewhere the thermometer doesn't measure. I found the tin box nailed to the back of the supply cabinet. Old, really old. The metal was eaten through with rust along the edges and the lid had swollen shut with decades of moisture. I pried it open with my knife. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth that had held up better than the tin, a journal, handmade, rough paper stitched together with wire, pages brown at the edges. The handwriting on the cover read, in Spanish and then English below it, Prospero Vega, Golden Pines Station, 1941 through 43. I almost put it back, almost. Then the thing moved on the far shore of the lake. I saw it through the cabin window, a shape easing out of the tree line, tall, too tall, moving wrong in a way that registered in my hindbrain before my eyes finished processing. Joints that bent in too many places, gait that was almost right and wasn't, the particular wrongness of something that has studied human movement from the outside and is doing its best. 2 orange points burned where eyes should be. It stood at the waterline across the lake and looked at me through the cabin window, 100 yards of still black water between us. Then it opened its mouth. "Help me," a woman's voice, perfect and desperate, carrying across the water with no distortion and no echo. "Please, somebody help me." Judith Tatum's voice. I'd listened to the family's emergency transmission in my truck on the way up. I knew her voice. I ran. Not toward it. Away from the cabin. Back along the North Shore. Back toward the trail. I wasn't deciding. My body made the call. The pines swallowed me, and behind me something moved off the far shore. Massive. Unhurried. It knew where the trail went. They're always 3 steps ahead. I know that now. I didn't know it then, which is probably why I'm alive. I ran for 2 miles before I made myself stop. Pressed my back against a wide trunk. Killed my headlamp. Controlled my breathing the way they teach you at the academy, and the way it actually works when you practice it enough times that the body does it without asking the brain. In through the nose. Count to 4. Out through the mouth. Count to 4. Heart rate drops whether it wants to or not. The forest was dark. Moonlight came through in patches, enough to see shapes. I went over what I knew while I caught my breath. That's the training. 30 seconds of assessment even when every instinct says move, because the 30 seconds pays back 100 times over. What I knew, multiple creatures. At least 8, based on what I'd seen. Organic, plant-based. based on how the bear spray had affected the one I'd caught full in the face. Fast on open terrain, still learning the trail system, they'd been circling and adjusting rather than cutting me off, which meant they understood the terrain from above but not from the ground. They were good, getting better, not perfect. What I knew about fire, Vega's journal, magnesium, I had one flare left. What I knew about the layout, trailhead 9 miles down, the trail was the predictable route and the most dangerous one. Off-trail in Big Bend backcountry at night was how you broke an ankle on limestone and lay there until morning. I had to use the trail. I had to use it smarter than they expected. I heard them before I saw them, heavy, deliberate footsteps from multiple directions, moving in that specific pattern that means you're the center of a circle that's closing. I'd heard it from deer before, from javelinas, from a black bear once on the Davis Trail. This was bigger than all of those, and it was not one animal. I counted 8 points of orange light drifting between trunks. I switched my headlamp back on. They were standing at the edge of the beam, just outside where the light got useful, 8 of them in a loose circle, all tall, all wrong, all holding perfectly still with their heads tilted at the same angle, the way a room full of people look when they're all listening to the same thing. I raised the Glock and shot the nearest one center mass. The bullet went through it, through the jacket it was wearing, through whatever was underneath the jacket, and into the tree behind it. The thing looked down at the hole in the fabric, looked back up at me. I holstered the weapon, understood immediately that it was going to stay holstered unless I found a better reason to use it. The nearest one stepped into the full beam of my headlamp and I got my first clear look at what we're dealing with. 7 feet, minimum, hind legs like an elk, thick haunches, backward bending knees, black hooves deep in the pine litter. The torso shaped human enough to pattern match and wrong enough to make you want to look away. Arms hung past where a knee would be on a person, fingers with too many knuckles. The skin pulled across the frame like it belonged to something slightly smaller than what was wearing it. It had Ray Tatum's jacket on, REI tag still on the zipper pull. The face, almost human, almost. Wide-set eyes burning orange, no pupil, no iris, just light. Mouth too broad, nose compressed flat. The expression was curious in a way that had no warmth in it, the way a scientist is curious about a specimen, which is interested and clinical and the opposite of personal. It opened that too wide mouth and Ray Tatum's voice came out, perfect. The exact timbre, the exact Texas drawl, the exact way a man in his 40s sounds when he's trying to sound calm and not quite pulling it off. Looks like a good spot to camp. What do you think, Judith? Behind it, another voice, Judith Tatum, from a different direction. Kira, honey, stay close. A third, younger, trembling. Kira, Dad, something feels wrong. Can we go home? They cycled through it, all 3 voices. The voices the Tatum family had been using on the trail before whatever happened at the lake. Practiced, rehearsed, practiced, rehearsed. The rhythm right. The music underneath it wrong. The largest one stepped closer. I hit it with the bear spray. The capsaicin caught it full in the face, and the reaction was immediate and violent. It jerked backward, made a sound like a steam kettle pushed past its limit. It clawed at its eyes with those wrong, jointed fingers. The others pulled back a step, uncertain, recalculating. I ran again. I had enough sense this time to run smart, not flat out. I needed to control my breathing, control my pace, use 12 years of trail knowledge instead of raw adrenaline. Every switchback, every creek crossing, every section where the trail bent away from the ridgeline and gave me cover from above. I knew this mountain the way I knew my own kitchen. They were faster than me on open terrain, but they were still learning the terrain, still figuring out the trails, the grades, the places where the mountain folded in ways that cut off pursuit. They'd been watching this landscape from the high places, from the dark, from wherever they went when the sun came up. They knew the geography from above. I knew it from inside. That bought me something. I ran until the first gray lights started washing the eastern peaks. Then they stopped. I heard them pulling back, not retreating, withdrawing, deliberate, back toward the high country, back toward the thick stands of Ponderosa where the sun wouldn't reach for hours yet. The sound of them faded and then was gone, and I was alone on the trail at mile 5 with my lungs on fire and my hands shaking and every light on my gear dead. GPS, phone, backup radio, all of it, cold and dead, all of them, at once. I sat down in the trail and breathed. In the pocket of my jacket, the tin box journal pressed against my ribs. I'd grabbed it when I ran from the cabin without deciding to. Muscle memory, maybe. Or something that understood the value of documentation even when the brain was screaming other things. I pulled it out, opened it to the first page. Prospero Vega's handwriting was small and precise. The Spanish first, then his own English translation beside it in slightly different ink, done later, for whoever came after. I am writing this for the person who finds this box. If you are reading this, you have seen something in these mountains that you cannot explain to anyone who is not here. I am sorry for that. I am sorry you came here. My family has ranched this valley since 1881. My grandfather knew about the things before I did. He called them los que caminan con piel prestada, the ones who walk in borrowed skin. They have been here longer than the cattle, longer than the missions, longer than anyone who has a name for them. Here is what my grandfather knew and what I have confirmed in 2 years of watching from this station. They do not die. Not from bullets, not from weather, not from anything I have tried. Fire hurts them. I have seen them retreat from flame. Magnesium burns are the worst. Ranch flares, welding torches. Avoid their places and they will avoid yours. They mark their territory with sharpened stakes. When you see the stakes, you are at the boundary. Cross it, and they will study you. They want to learn you, your voice, your movements, your face. They do not hunt for food. They hunt for knowledge, for material. They take what they need and add it to themselves, and what is left is not dead, not entirely. Do not answer voices in the dark. Do not run unless you know where you are going. Do not go to the lake after sunset. If they let you leave, you will feel it. They choose to let you go. This means you are more useful to them alive and telling stories than dead and silent. They need the fear. Fear keeps other humans away. Fear protects them. Stay away from Golden Pines Station after dark. Tell your children. Tell their children. This is not a legend. This is instruction. Prospero Vega, February 1943. The journal ended there, mid-page. The rest was blank. I sat in the trail in the gray pre-dawn and read it twice. Fire. Magnesium. I checked my kit. Emergency flares. 2 of them. Magnesium core. Burns at 1800 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes each. I put the journal back in my jacket pocket. I had things to do before the sun got any higher. I made it to the trailhead by 7 a.m. Carol met me with a park service vehicle and a thermos of coffee and the expression of someone who had been awake all night running worst-case scenarios. She took one look at me and didn't say anything about the state I was in. Torn jacket, mud to the knees, the particular hollow look that comes from running on fear and adrenaline for 8 hours. That's Carol. She makes a professional assessment and moves directly to what's required. The Tatum family. Still missing. What happened up there? I told her. All of it. The stakes, the boots, the carving on the table, the thing at the lake using Judith Tatum's exact voice across 100 yards of black water, the full creature description. What happened when I shot it, what the bear spray did, the run. She listened without interrupting. That's a skill. Most people who work dispatch get good at it because interrupting a caller mid-emergency can cost lives, but Carol had taken it further. She'd developed the ability to receive terrible information without putting any of herself in the way of it. Just clear space and attention and no judgment until the person was done. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then, "You're not hypothermic. Eyes are tracking. No confusion in your account." "I'm not confused." I know you're not." She handed me the thermos. My abuela told stories about Golden Pines Lake, stories her mother told her. She said the old families knew not to camp there and not to answer voices in the dark, the way you pass down something practical. She paused. "I always thought it was superstition." "It's not superstition." "No." Carol looked at the mountains. "What do you need?" "Close Golden Pines. Nobody goes up there. Environmental hazard, geological concern. Just close it." Carol shook her head. "I can't close it on a ranger's field report about creatures. I need justification I can file. Then send Felix and Reyes to do the official search. But if you do that, you tell them what I told you. Every word. They go up there knowing what they're going into." Carol looked at me steadily. "And if I tell Felix Okafor there are 7-foot things with elk legs that steal human voices living at Golden Pines Lake, what do you think Felix does with that?" I knew the answer before she finished the question. Felix would process it, nod seriously, and drive up that mountain with a service pistol and a completely insufficient understanding of what insufficient meant in this context. He was good. He just wasn't 12 years good in these specific mountains. "Send me with them. I run the search." "You haven't slept. You've been in the field for—" "Carol." She looked at me for a long time, long enough that I could see her weighing it. The liability, the protocol, what it meant to send a sleep-deprived ranger back into active terrain, what it meant not to. Then she picked up her radio. Felix Okafor arrived at the trailhead at 9 a.m. with Deputy Anna Reyes from the county, a search and rescue kit, and the particular energy of a competent person who has just been told they're heading into something unusual and has decided not to show concern about that. Felix was 10 years into his career, which meant he was good enough to be confident and not yet experienced enough to be afraid of the right things. He had a wife in Marathon, twin boys he coached Little League for on weekends, and a habit of showing people photos of those boys at any available opportunity. He showed me on his phone while we were gearing up. 2 kids in baseball uniforms squinting into Texas afternoon sun, matching grins, missing the same front tooth. Marcus and Elijah, 7 and 9. Elijah's got an arm. He's going to be good. I told him I believed it. I wrote their names in my head because I do that. I always do that. I've been doing it since my 2nd year when I pulled a hiker off a ledge in Dead Horse Canyon. He'd been out there 9 hours, hypothermic, disoriented, starting to let go in the specific way people start to let go when they've decided the effort isn't worth it. I knew his name from the permit. I used it every 30 seconds for the last half-mile out. He made it. After that, I made it a habit. Learn the name, use the name. People come back to their name when everything else is gone. You'd be surprised how far they'll walk for it. I told them what I'd seen. Everything. Flat and direct. The way I told Carol. The same words in the same order. Creature anatomy. Voice mimicry. The larynx. The stakes. The flare. What the magnesium had done. Felix listened with his arms crossed and his face neutral. Reyes made notes in a small book with the focused efficiency of someone who would process what this meant later and stay functional now. When I finished, Felix uncrossed his arms. Organic, plant material, resin. That's what it looked like when they burned. Bullets don't work. Not on the one I shot. 1 round center mass went straight through. But fire does. Hurt it badly. Cleared a path. I don't know about kill. He nodded once. Not I believe you, not I don't believe you. Processing and moving to the next required action. That was Felix. That was exactly why I'd asked for him specifically. Some people need the situation to make sense before they can function in it. Felix could function in situations that would never make sense and process the rest afterward. We each took 2 emergency flares from the kit. 6 between us counting Reyes. One more thing. If your electronics start dying for no reason, GPS, radio, phone. That means they're close. Don't wait for it to get worse. Start moving immediately. Toward the trail or away from it? Toward it. Always toward the trail. The trail is the one thing they're still learning. Felix looked at me for a moment, then he shouldered his pack. We started up the mountain at 10 a.m. The mountain was different in daylight. The October sun made the ponderosas warm and the trail clear. The Chisos in daylight looked ancient and beautiful and austere. The kind of landscape that makes you feel small in a way that's supposed to be humbling rather than terrifying. I knew what was in it now. That changed the view. The stakes at mile 4 were still there. Felix photographed them without comment. At mile 10, we found Sophie's backpack still hanging from the branch where I'd left it. Reyes bagged it as evidence. At mile 13, Felix stopped. Something's wrong with my GPS. I looked. The screen was cycling, showing our position, losing it, recovering, losing it again, not dead, flickering, testing. They're closer than they were last night. We moved faster. We found Ray Tatum's body at mile 9. I told them what to expect, and still the sight of it knocked the air out of the morning. He was face down in the trail. The spine was wrong, not broken the way a fall breaks you. Something worse. The architecture underneath had been reorganized. Outside stayed mostly intact. When Felix rolled him carefully onto his back, I made myself look at what they'd done, because looking was my job, and my job didn't stop just because the situation was outside anything they train you for. The chest was opened. That's the only word for it, and it's not adequate. The ribs had been spread apart at the sternum with precision, pulled wide like pages, the cavity beneath completely empty. Everything that should have been there was gone. The surrounding tissue wasn't torn or savage the way animal predation looks. It was separated cleanly at the attachment points, edges neat, the interior of the chest wall dried and dark. They'd been careful, methodical, the way a person is careful with something they want to preserve. His face was intact, eyes open, mouth frozen in the last shape it made. His throat was wrong. Felix leaned close, professional mask holding by sheer force of will. Larynx is missing. He looked up at me. Surgically removed, or something that understood the anatomy. They took it first. That's how they get the voice. They need the actual hardware. Reyes had stopped writing. She was standing 3 feet back with her notebook open and her pen not moving and her face doing something I recognized. The specific expression of a competent person whose training is actively wrestling with what their eyes are reporting and losing. How do they even? I don't know how they do any of it. I know what I've seen. I stepped around Ray Tatum's body. Let's keep moving. Behind me, I heard Felix stand up, heard him exhale slowly through his nose. The sound of a person putting something in a box and latching it shut and deciding that box stays closed until later. Later, for Felix, never came. The cabin was exactly as I'd left it. 3 pairs of shoes on the table, the carving in the wood, the oil lantern still burning on low from last night, which meant something and I couldn't figure out what. Felix stood in front of the table for a long time. He picked up one of Kira's sneakers, purple, white laces, and set it back down carefully. Felix looked at the window. 2 more people are still out there. I know. Ray's had her radio out. I'm getting nothing. Complete dead zone. Electronics die around them. Has been true both times I've been up here. Both times, Felix repeated. Not questioning, cataloging. I showed him the tin box, showed him Vega's journal. He read it standing up, which is how Felix read everything. When he finished, he handed it to Reyes and looked at the lake through the cabin window. The lake was still in the afternoon light. The ponderosas threw long shadows across the water, beautiful, quiet, everything hidden. They'll come out after dark. How long do we have? I checked my watch. 3 hours of useful light, maybe 4. Then we work the perimeter now. Find the women. Get them out before dark. We split up to cover the north shore. Felix took east. Reyes took west. I went straight through the tree line toward the high ground behind the cabin. The idea was to cover as much terrain as possible before the light went. I found the cave entrance at the base of a limestone outcropping a half-mile north of the lake. Narrow gap between two boulders, cold air rising from below. "Judith Tatum," I called into the gap. Quiet, not loud. "Kira, Park Service. I'm a ranger." Silence. Then, from deep inside, movement. The sound of someone trying to decide whether to trust. "My name is Cole Decker. I've been looking for you. Your truck is at the trailhead. I need to get you down this mountain." A voice, raw from crying and dehydration. "How do I know you're real?" "Good question. Smart question. Ask me something only a ranger would know. Your permit number is on your dashboard. Entry date October 13th. Overnight permit, Golden Pines Lake, North Shore." A long pause, then the sound of someone moving toward the light. Judith Tatum was 3 days of survival written on a face. Gaunt, cracked lips, eyes that had recalibrated. Gaunt, cracked lips, eyes that had seen enough to change their baseline. Kira was behind her, one arm around her mother's waist, right ankle badly swollen. I gave them water, checked Kira's ankle, fractured, probably, definitely not walking without support, checked Judith's vitals, both alive, both present. Both tougher than the situation had any right to leave them. My husband, flat, not a question. She already knew. "I know, I'm sorry." Her eyes closed. When she opened them, they were steady. Not okay. Nobody was okay up here. But steady in the way you get steady when the worst thing has already happened and what's left is survival arithmetic. When she opened them, they were the eyes of someone who had already moved past grief into whatever comes after grief when survival is still an active requirement. Those things kept coming to the cave entrance. She said, calling to us in Ray's voice, Kira's voice, my own voice. Her jaw tightened. My own voice, telling us it was safe to come out. "You didn't go?" "No." "That kept you alive." I radioed Felix. No signal. Tried 3 times. Nothing. I helped Judith get Kira upright, assessed weight and balance, figured out the best carry configuration for a 17-year-old with a fractured ankle through rough backcountry. Kira gritted her teeth and didn't cry once during the assessment, which told me everything I needed to know about her. "We're moving fast. Stay close. Don't respond to any voice you hear that isn't mine. If I go quiet for any reason, you two keep moving downhill. The trail is marked. Don't stop." "What about the other rangers?" "On the way down." I left that sentence unfinished where it needed to be left. We'd been moving for 20 minutes when I heard Felix's voice from somewhere off the trail to the east. "Decker. Hey, Decker, over here." I stopped, held up my hand. Judith and Kira stopped behind me. My heart did a specific thing, the thing it does when it wants something to be true so badly that the wanting itself is a danger. Felix was still alive out there. Felix was calling my name. Felix had found something and needed me, and all I had to do was go toward the voice. Felix's voice again. "Found something. You need to see this." 12 years. I'd known Felix for 8 of them. Watched him become a ranger, watched him figure out what the job actually was, watched him photograph his boys on his phone and show anyone who'd stand still long enough. I knew his voice better than I knew most things. I knew this wasn't him. The timing was wrong. The rhythm was right, but the music underneath the rhythm was wrong. The way breath sounds between words. The specific silence of a person choosing what to say next. All of it mechanical. All of it studied. All of it as close as anything I'd ever heard and still not right. "Judith, quiet. Keep Kira moving. Downhill. Trails marked. Don't stop for anything. What about you? Right behind you. Go." They went. I waited until Kira's careful footsteps faded into the distance, and then I turned toward the sound. I called out, Show yourself. Step out where I can see you. Movement in the trees. A shape coming into the last afternoon light. Felix's build. Felix's uniform. Felix's face. Every detail right. The way he stood, the way his hands hung at his sides, even the specific forward tilt he always had when he was thinking about something. I looked at the shadow it cast on the trail behind it. Wrong proportions, wrong angles, not the shadow of a man. You're not Felix. It tilted his head at the angle I'd learned to recognize, Felix's voice from that throat. But I have him. I unscrewed the cap on the emergency flare. The thing looked at it, looked at me. For a long moment, nothing moved. Then, Judith Tatum's voice now, steady, almost gentle. Leave. Don't come back. She lives. You live. 8 words. That was the whole negotiation. No philosophy, no explanation, no speech about what they were and why they did what they did. Just the terms, clean and direct. The way the mountains communicated, not with words but with the weight behind them. I looked at the shape wearing Felix's face and Felix's uniform and Felix's carefully studied posture, and I thought about the face inside the chest, and I thought about what leave meant and what it cost and what the alternative was. I thought about Kira's ankle and Judith's cracked lips and how far they still had to go. I lit the flare. He's alive. Inside us. Aware. It's not comfortable, but it's not death either. We keep what we take. You should know that. You should tell people that. Felix's voice. Felix's particular cadence, the slight Nigerian rhythm his parents had given him that never quite left even after 30 years in Texas. It matters that we keep them. Where's Ray's? Same. Both of them. Alive. It took a step toward me. We want to offer you the same thing we offered your ranger the first night. Leave. Close this place. Keep people away. Where are they? Felix and Reyes. Show me. The thing paused. Then it did something I didn't expect. It opened its jacket. The skin of its chest separated. Not tearing. Peeling. Clean strips pulling back from the center line, exposing the structure underneath. Translucent muscle wrapped over cartilage arranged in ways that muscle and cartilage are not supposed to arrange. The whole interior bending and shifting as I watched, reorganizing, making room. And in the center of that chest cavity, surrounded by the alien architecture of what the thing was made of, was a face. Felix Okafor's face. Intact, complete. Skin, features, the particular line of his jaw, the scar above his left eyebrow from a mountain biking accident he'd told me about once. His eyes were open. His mouth was moving. I need to describe this exactly because it's the thing I can't stop seeing and because getting it right is the only thing I owe him. Felix was in there. Not a copy, not a recording. Felix. Conscious. Aware. His eyes found mine across the 5 feet between us, and something passed through them that I recognized. The specific look of someone who has understood their situation completely and has no hope left but is not yet done speaking. His mouth shaped words. The sound came from somewhere too far inside. I can hear everything it hears, barely a whisper. Everything. I think what it thinks. I feel what it feels. I'm in here and I can't. I can't move. I can't get out. Cole, I'm still in here. I'm awake. I've been awake this whole time. Please, please, I'm begging you. Please kill me. Please, I can't. The chest closed. The strips of skin sealed back together, edges finding edges, the whole surface smoothing over until there was nothing there but Ray Tatum's jacket. Felix was gone. Behind a wall I had no way through. The thing straightened. I lit the flare. The magnesium caught and the flare went from my hand into the open chest cavity in one motion, and the thing shrieked in its own voice, a sound that was nothing human. Metal scraping across bone at frequency that hurt my teeth. It staggered back, flames erupting from inside it, and I saw what magnesium at 1800 degrees does to plant resin. It burns through it like paper. It thrashed. I ran. The burning thing behind me made a sound I will not put in words. That high metal scraping shriek in its own voice. The sound of whatever it was made of reacting to magnesium at 1800 degrees. It was loud enough that I heard it over my own footsteps and over my own breathing and over the blood in my ears. More of them coming through the trees. I could hear them converging. That same coordinated circle pattern from the first night, but faster this time. They'd learned from the first night. They'd adjusted. I was running the same trail, and they knew this trail better now than they had 24 hours ago. I changed my pattern, took a cutoff I knew from a flood survey 2 years back, shorter but rougher, through terrain that required knowing exactly where to put your feet. Rough enough that the elk leg anatomy behind me would have to slow down. Rough enough to cost me time, too, but time I could afford better than they could. Behind me, the shrieking faded. The footsteps got less coordinated. I heard something go down hard on loose rock and not come up as fast as it had gone down. 12 years. I came out of the cutoff onto the main trail at mile 6 and settled into a pace I could hold. Behind me, nothing. Ahead, the trailhead 7 miles down and Carol's Coffee and the ordinary world. Around mile 4, the sounds behind me thinned, then stopped. I slowed, listened. Wind in the ponderosas, a nighthawk somewhere off to the east, the ordinary sounds of the chisos at dusk, present and accountable. Voices ahead. Human voices, Judith and Kira on the trail, moving carefully in the dying light. And with them, a third voice, female, steady, running through the kind of focused assessment questions that meant someone was checking a casualty's status. I came around a bend and nearly walked into all 3 of them. Reyes stood in the middle of the trail with her notebook out. I stopped, assessed. The shadow fell right. The proportions were right. Her hands were moving the way Ana Reyes's hands moved, and she was asking Kira about the ankle in the exact way Reyes would ask. Clinical first, then kind. Reyes, look at me. She looked. Her face was her face. Eyes brown, no orange, no light. When did they get you? I asked. I saw the Felix thing. It said you were both taken. Something moved across her expression. I heard it coming, climbed a tree, stayed up there for an hour while it walked below me using my voice. She paused. That's not something I'm going to be fine about for a while. No, me neither. We moved. We reached the trailhead at midnight. Carol was there. She took one look at the 4 of us and called for medical, and then she looked at me over the roof of the ambulance, and I shook my head once and she understood what that meant, and she looked at the mountains for a long moment, and then she looked back at her radio. Judith and Kira were transported to the hospital in Alpine. Kira had a clean fracture and a concussion she'd been hiding. Judith had dehydration and hypothermia and something behind her eyes that no medical chart has a diagnosis for. Felix Okafor and Ana Reyes were listed as missing, presumed dead, memorial services, families informed. The whole machinery of institutional grief moving forward the way it always does. The official cause of death for Ray Tatum, exposure and animal scavenging, consistent with a single adult male lost in October backcountry without adequate water. The chest wound was attributed to predation post-mortem. I filed my incident report, the version that goes in the record. Complete sentences, objective language, no mention of orange eyes or harvested larynxes or a good man's face looking at me from inside a chest that wasn't a chest. 3 weeks later, Golden Pines Lake was officially closed. Unstable terrain, ongoing environmental survey, indefinite timeline. The signs went up. The trail was blocked. Carol made it happen and didn't ask me for paperwork I couldn't provide. I kept working, kept patrolling, did my job the way I'd always done it, which is carefully and without drama and with full attention to everything the mountain is telling you if you're willing to listen. I see them sometimes, shapes at tree line, orange points on a ridgeline at dusk, shadows cast from the wrong angle in afternoon light. They keep their distance, I keep mine. The arrangement holds. I drove home on autopilot, 45 minutes of dark desert road, and I don't remember any of it. I remember turning into my driveway and sitting in the truck for a while with the engine running and the headlights on and the desert doing what the desert does, which is hold still and not offer any of it back. My house was exactly as I'd left it 2 days ago. Coffee cup in the sink, mail on the table, everything in the arrangement of a normal Tuesday evening in a normal life. I sat on the couch with a beer I didn't drink and the Vega journal open on my knee, and I read it again, cover to cover. All 3 pages, the Spanish and the English, and the mid-sentence stop at the end, and I thought about Prospero Vega in 1943 sitting in that same cabin with whatever he'd seen fresh in his mind, and the mountains dark outside, and the things up in the high pines learning him through the walls, and writing it down anyway because someone needed to know. I thought about Felix. I thought about whether he was still in there. Whether somewhere in that thing that was going to walk these mountains for another century, some smaller and dimmer version of Felix Okafor was still counting time in the dark, still aware, still thinking about Marcus and Elijah and their matching grins and the arm that was going to be good. I don't know the answer to that. I'll never know the answer to that. I've decided that not knowing is something I can carry, because the alternative is spending the rest of my life trying to answer a question that has no answer, and I've got work to do. I called my sister Nora. It was past midnight and she picked up on the second ring because that's the kind of sister she is. And because she has always known when something was wrong the same way I have always known when something was wrong with her, the way people who grew up in the same house develop the same frequency. Cole? Just hearing her voice, just that. Yeah, I'm okay. How are the kids? Asleep. It's midnight, what's? I know. I just needed to hear you. Tell me about them. She was quiet the way she gets quiet when she's decided not to push yet. Then she told me. 10 minutes of normal. School and soccer practice and a science fair project about volcanoes that Danny had been working on for 2 weeks, and the argument about screen time that had been running since September with no end in sight. Normal life. The kind that exists in a house, in a city where the dark outside is just the dark and the worst thing in it is the neighbor's dog getting into the trash again. I sat on my porch in the October air and listened to every word. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. She understood. She's always understood. Prospero Vega's journal sits in my nightstand now. I've read it enough times that I could write it out from memory. The last line stays with me more than the rest. If they let you leave, you are more useful to them alive and telling stories than dead and silent. They need the fear. Fear protects them. It took me a while to sit with that, the idea that I'm not a survivor. I'm a function. I'm the story they need circulating so that fewer humans wander into Golden Pines Lake and start a whole new learning cycle. I keep people away and they stay in their mountains and the arrangement holds. There are worse deals you can come out of a mountain with. I think about Felix Okafor more than I think about most things. About whether some diminished version of him is still in there, still aware, still counting the days and whatever counts as days inside a thing that doesn't experience time the way we do. I think about it more than is healthy, and I've made my peace with that. Some things should cost you something. Some things should leave a mark you carry the rest of the way. Felix deserves at least that much. I think about Judith and Kira Tatum. They went home to Dallas and gave their statements and agreed with the official version and went back to their lives, which now have a room in them that never fully closes. I called Judith once, 6 weeks after. She answered on the second ring and we both stayed quiet for a moment. There's a specific kind of quiet between two people who went through something that has no accurate language. Then I told her the area was closed and no one else would go up there, that I'd made sure of it, that I would keep making sure of it for as long as I was the one walking these trails. She thanked me. I told her she was welcome. We both understood what that exchange actually was, which wasn't gratitude and wasn't closure. It was two people acknowledging that some things don't close. They just become part of how you move. The mountains still have their secrets. Los que caminan con piel prestada are still up there, learning, adding to whatever they carry. They were there before the Park Service named everything with cheerful signs, and they'll be there after every sign has rotted and the trails have grown back over and the whole project of human recreation in this desert has run its course. I'm one ranger in 12 years of a park that's been here less than a century on land those things have held for longer than my species has had language to describe them. All I can do is what Prospero Vega did, write it down and nail it in a box and trust that the right person finds it when they need it. You found it. Now you know. My phone rings sometimes at night, unknown number. I watch it light up and I count the rings until it stops and I don't pick up and I don't wonder whose voice would be on the other end. I already know. I already know what voice it's using. And I know it already knows I won't pick up. We have that understanding, for now, at least, for as long as that's worth something out here. Well, boys and ghouls, that wraps up another terrorific tale from the vault. Poor old Ray Tatum. Drove 4 hours from Dallas with the right gear, the right permits, the right everything. Read the trail guides, did the research. Oh, so sad. Turns out the trail guide doesn't have a section on what happens when the wrong thing decides you've got a voice worth keeping. And Felix Brown? Bless his heart. 10 years a good ranger, 2 boys in Little League, an arm that was going to be something. He went up that mountain a professional. He came back inside something else. Still in there too, aware, thinking about Marcus and Elijah in their baseball uniforms, counting whatever passes for days in the dark. Just how we fucking love it. Hit that subscribe button. New creature features drop every Monday and Friday at 8 p.m. Central, and trust me, the next one's even nastier. Leave a like if you'll think twice before answering a voice in the dark, and drop a comment if you've spent time in Big Bend, the Chisos, any of those West Texas mountains. Did something ever feel wrong out there? I'm always hunting for the next nightmare. Until next time, kiddies, keep your fires burning and your eyes on the trees. This has been your late night creature feature. I'm Mr. Wendigo. And hey, look on the bright side. Cole Decker made it out of those mountains alive, which is exactly what Los que caminan con piel prestada wanted. A good ranger, a closed trail, a story spreading nice and wide so nobody wanders up there and starts a whole new learning cycle. He thinks he survived. They think he works for them now. Honestly, they're both right. Sweet dreams, kiddies. Sweet dreams.